Well, welcome everyone to another episode of Now Faith Is TV, where faith, books, and business collide. My name is Dr. Paulette Harper, and I'm an author and self publishing coach for nonfiction aspiring authors, where I teach them how to write, publish, and launch their best selling books in 90 days. I am so excited about this episode here because I have a dear friend of mine on by the name of Judy Hewitt, and we're going to talk about caregiving today. So, she is an author, speaker, and advocate for caregiving. Thank you so much, Judy, for joining me here today on Now Faith Is TV.
Oh, thank you, Dr. Paulette Harper. How are you? It is my pleasure to be here with you this evening.
I am doing wonderfully blessed. So, tell us who you are so that our audience can get to know you a little bit better.
Sure. So, as you said, my name is Judy Hewitt, and I am an author, speaker, and advocate to caregivers. Now, I have spent over 3 decades as a healthcare professional, and I have witnessed firsthand the mental and physical demands that professional healthcare workers often face. However, it wasn't until I became a caregiver to my mom, who was diagnosed with cirrhosis of the liver and
Mhm.
had to have a liver transplant, that I understood the challenges that personal caregivers face today. Now, this personal experience, along with me writing my first anthology project with you, Dr. Paulette Harper, allowed me to become an advocate for caregivers. And as a result, Self Care for Caregivers International was formed.
Awesome. Isn't it interesting how one chapter
Yeah.
really changed the trajectory of your life? Because as we were talking before the show, you mentioned about you were on a different path, a different trajectory. And so talk about how the birthing of your business came about and what has been really the results of it.
Sure. So, after speaking about my chapter and my book on several platforms, as you have allowed us to be exposed to different venues, I really started doing some research, and I realized that that was something dear to my heart. And then, in looking back and in talking with God in my prayer and meditation, He actually showed me, well, you have not just been a caregiver to your mom in this story, but look at your career.
Mhm.
You've been in the healthcare industry as an administrator, not as a clinician, your entire career. And so I had to actually see how both of them were mirrored.
Mhm.
So, in learning and getting a coach and trying to figure out where does God want me and what does He want me to do, what we did was we did launch the company, and we had our very first workshop October in 2022, where we supported our caregivers with respite care. We provided them mini massages, facials, and we took care of all the pain points. We had a mental health therapist, so they can check in with themselves, talking about stress releases. We had an insurance person speaking about Medicare insurance to provide them those information and resources. There are programs that we have that helps with the cost of medication, as well as someone teaching them about certain things with life insurance. So we were able to holistically provide them the services that they need to help them through as they navigate caregiving for their family members.
Well, that is so needed because a lot of adults have to now turn around and take care of their ailing parents now, and a lot of us wouldn't know how to do that, you know. And so, with your organization, your business, you mentioned respite care, and that is something. I want you to elaborate a little bit on that and what that means for the individual who is taking care of other people.
Sure. So, respite care is basically a short term relief for primary caregivers, whether you're taking care of, a family member, a friend, a child, as well as even healthcare professionals. It could be an afternoon away, it could be several days, or it could be weeks. More or less a retreat, somewhere you can reset, you can check in with yourself, You can maybe, do some journaling, gratitude, spa days, anything that will allow you to take some time away from your duties as a caregiver to reset, to then go back to caring for your loved one.
Yeah, and that is so important because I can imagine that people who are, caregivers, the last person they're thinking about is themselves.
Absolutely.
And they get exhausted from just the care of it. And so in your business that you provide, what have you seen for caregivers? And I know that there's different levels to that, I would imagine, because some people need different types of care than others.
Mhm.
So and I may be wrong in that assessment, but tell us, in your assessment of being a caregiver and then teaching other people how to do it, what have you seen that has really been the difference between, maybe a person taking care of somebody who's maybe mentally ill versus someone that may be, ill, physically from their, from an ailment from their body.
Right. So for looking at the mentally illness, there are resources that the healthcare professionals can provide those family members to engage in to assist their loved ones, learning different techniques on noticing the dementia and the symptoms that they may have, and how to navigate through that. So your healthcare professional usually have resources on the mental component to help if it's an Alzheimer's patient, a dementia, or whatever the actual diagnosis is, to navigate through that. Now, for self care for the actual caregiver, you got to know when you're burned out. That's
Mhm.
the first thing. You got to know, because sometimes we wear many hats. We are mom, we're businesswoman, grandma, auntie, and then caregiver on top of that, as well as making sure you take care of yourself. So you need to check in with yourself and know when
Mhm.
it's that burnout time. And then have a plan, because sometimes we don't have a plan. And planning is so essential. And it could be simple task. You can do journaling.
Mhm.
That is one thing that I see that a lot of people really like. There are two types of journaling. You can do a worry journal, where
Mhm.
about a few minutes before you go to bed, you just write down your fears, the things that are troubling you, the things that you're having some bad experience with. That'll help reduce the anxiety. And then of course
Mhm.
there's gratitude journaling. Take a couple of mornings, before you start, or a couple of days a week, and just practice getting in the use of the things that you're thankful and happy for. And sometimes we don't look at the little things that are there because we're looking at the bigger picture of the things that we have to do. And then daily affirmations are also great, where you start out your day with something positive. You'll be surprised on just saying today is going to be a good day
Mhm.
helps along the way, as in today is going to be a good day.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm a real big advocate on affirmation, so that is really good. And so, when you are talking to somebody about well, let me ask you this: when somebody approaches you about caregiving,
Mhm.
and they're at the beginning stages, that they are contemplating now having to address the issue of taking care of somebody that they love, what would be like the first things you would tell them to do in order to really consider doing that?
Well, one of the things will be find out what the needs are first, because you need to know what has to be set up. Does the person need daily care or just night
Mm,
care? What are their daily activities and routines? Are they able to bathe themselves? Take care of their ADL, so forth. Sometimes your doctor starts the process to get them the type of required care that's needed, whether they need to have simple placement in certain types of things, because the doctor makes that assessment.
mhm,
And then having a plan. Family members gather them together. Let's have a plan. Who's going to help out? Who's not going to help out? Because sometimes we want to do it all by ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
But get the family involved, let's take turns. And then it's very important about the financials, what costs for medications and maybe hospital stays, or does mom or dad need to move from the home because there's stairs and they need to be on a one level. So there are different types of things that you have to kind of make an assessment as to what the needs are. And then first you would reach out to your provider so they can start helping you with the insurance process to see how much the insurance is going to assist with, to then know what you have to come out of your pocket with, or what the actual needs are going to be.
Wow.
It's a lot. It's a lot.
Yeah, I was just about to say that. Because we don't know. We just know that there are people who take care of someone that they love. We don't know the backstory of what it takes to even get to that point, and you talked about making adjustments if somebody has upstairs and downstairs, and surely you have to be mindful and make adjustments to that, and so there's so many layers that someone who's never, taken care of anyone before now has to face those, those obstacles and dilemmas of how to handle and how to deal with somebody that they love, because they want to provide the best care possible for them.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think in listening to a lot of the conferences that I go to, I never heard of this before, but we really need to start talking about this before it happens.
Yeah.
Because you never know when it is going to happen, based on statistics, post pandemic, the based on the National Alliance of Caregiving, the 2020 report, 9.5 million people are now caregivers, and that went up from 2015 to 2020. So you have a lot of people now that are put in this position without a plan, not knowing they were going to have to even do this. We don't know when we're going to get ill or what's going to happen, but we know that in life it does happen.
Yeah, that's
That's
like
life. That's a part of life.
Yeah, that's almost like not wanting to talk about death.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Because especially if you have an older parent or somebody who might be, mentally capacitated in some facet, they're going to need that kind of care, and you're absolutely right. That is something that we need to talk about prior to, because that day possibly will come,
It
and
will come.
and then to have a plan, and so, when you're talking about having a plan for caregiving, I know somebody who's taken care of both their parents. And one of the things that she struggles with is trusting somebody to come in and take care of them while she's gone. How do you talk someone into that in order so that they could have that, you called it respite care?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Well, they have to seek out agencies that are reputable, that have the accreditation. So therefore, they know that the employees are accredited and bonded. It's good to say, my neighbor is a nurse, or my neighbor helps so and she's good and I can refer you to her. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. But for you to feel safe, there are agencies out there that are accredited, and you have to make sure that they are accredited as well as their staff, and everything is in place where they can come out and provide you that assistance, so you are comfortable with leaving with your loved one, so you can take care of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
you
Yeah.
know
Yeah, definitely. And what would you say, especially people that are contemplating being a caregiver, and I'm sure that it can be very overwhelming. I mean, just based on the things that you said that we would have to do, that plan that we would have to develop. it can be very overwhelming because you have so many points of contact that you have to talk to and make sure that everything is in place. How do you relieve somebody from that overwhelming feeling of, and I know you mentioned about family,
Right.
and so that is so important, but sometimes you may be by yourself.
Right, right. It's okay to ask for help.
Hmm.
It's okay to go to your doctor and be an advocate for your family member and ask for help. It's okay to ask questions. And if you don't find the answer there, go to the next person. You will find that a lot of hospitals, even though they're really bogged down, but there are case managers.
Mm.
So, say if, for example, your family member gets ill and they're in the hospital for a while, they have a case manager that
Mhm.
sets up a program to transition them from the hospital to, a certain type of care facility. Lean on that case manager. They are the ones that have the resources. Because, as you say, some people are alone, whereas they don't have the family component to assist them. And then there are programs now. I found out that there are other programs out there since I've been doing this. There are a whole lot of other people that are out there that are actual nurses and doctors that have come to this calling to be caregivers. As a matter of fact, I'm going to be speaking on a platform, an international caregiver summit, and I met some remarkable doctors and nurses, that has taken this on due to having to take care of a family member. As a matter of fact, I met one nurse who is a caregiver, and she got ill, and she's
Mhm.
like, how does the caregiver now turned out to be on the other side of it?
Yeah, yeah,
And we never really think of those things, because sometimes it could shift.
yeah.
Also, it may not be an elderly parent. You may be a thriving, couple in your 50s looking at retirement soon, and unfortunately you have, an episode or something, and now your spouse is not able to work anymore.
Yeah, I know someone who is taking care of a husband and a wife, and it can be extremely overwhelming because this person has two people that they're taking care of, and I know that you really need the strength of the Lord to even be able
Yes,
to
ma'am.
to really do something like that. And so I know that this is really your mission in life. It may have not been what you thought you were going to be doing, but this is really the trajectory in which God is allowing you to really make an imprint and an impact into other people, because there's so many people who need what you have, to bring them resources and tools and the know-how on how to really do this effectively, so
Yes.
I applaud you for even saying yes, because you could have said, no, Lord, this is the plan that I have for my life, and this is where I want to go. So, what has been really rewarding for you to do something that is so fulfilling that it serves other people?
It's been rewarding for me to hear stories of other people who say to me, if it wasn't because of her, I wouldn't be here today. She took care of me. As a matter of fact, when we had our first workshop, I had it in my community. And one of my neighbors pulled me aside, and she was literally crying. And she says, I don't normally tell everyone my business, but Debbie, one of my other neighbors, took good care of me when I went to the hospital. Could you honor her in some way?
Mm.
And we were able to just surprise her and honor her as a result of that. So that is so transformative that, people do things out of their kindness of their heart, but and they don't know the impact that they're making on the person that they're helping. So that warms my heart because we all have to be each other's keeper.
Yes, I agree with you. So, talk about your workshop. You mentioned that it is Rest, Restore, Renew for a Purposeful Life. Tell us about what that means.
Okay, so rest, restore, renew. and God gave that to me. So first we talked about rest, and so we looked at the Matthew 11:28. Come unto me, all who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. And we know that God calls us to rest. We know that rest is essential for better mental health, for increased concentration, and for memory. We need to establish a regular sleep routine. We need to wake up every day, start your morning with sunshine. You'll be surprised that the sunlight and exposure to it can stimulate, your hormones and give you alertness. And then we look at restore. And so the scripture, of course, we have several, but I love he restoreth my soul
Mm.
in Psalms 23:3. I mean, to me, saying that now made me feel so relieved. And as we know, restoration is a definition and the act of returning to something to its former condition, making something new again.
Mm.
And as we talked about journaling and things like that, that is one way of being restored, where you're doing mindfulness things.
Mm.
And then lastly, looking at renewal. And we know that the Lord shall renew our strength. And renewal is just about refreshing our minds, our bodies, and our spirits, where we have engaging activities that revitalize us. So therefore we can reset ourselves, like learning new skills, engage in hobbies, go back to things that you used to love to do, because sometimes we get lost in wearing our many hats. And I think the combination of the rest, restore, renew just puts us back in a place where we're able to just sit back, reset, refresh, so then we can go on to our daily activities of caregiving.
Yes, yes, yes. Awesome. So, what would you tell somebody who is, you know, they're on the verge of having to make a decision to do that? What would be the first thing that you would tell them to do in order to, make a decision that this is what they need to do? Because they could either put that person in like in a care home or take care of them themselves. Correct?
They can. However, if they put them in a care home, just know that there is work to be done there too. You can't just put them there and leave them, because they will not get the care that they need unless you're there advocating for them to be cared for, because they are also overworked and
Mm.
underpaid. So there's still a component of you having to be active in their care. If they are in a nursing home, you got to make sure they are getting them their water so they don't end up with urinary tract infections. I mean, it's really a hands-on. When I would say it's easier to take care of them at home,
Yeah.
and I know there are great places out there, so I'm not saying anything wrong about places. But what I'm trying to get at is the amount of time that you would put into caring for them at home, where you would find that they would love being more in their own surroundings, is the same amount of activity you have to put into if they're in a nursing home, and maybe even more,
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
make sure that the care is very, well taken care of.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. Yeah, definitely. So, how would somebody connect with you, contact you so that they can learn more about what you do and how you can serve them?
Oh, sure. So we are at self care, the number four, caregivers. We abbreviated international, intl.com. And our email is self-care, the number four, caregivers, intl at gmail.com.
Well, wonderful. Well, Judy, I want to thank you for being on Now Faith is TV. And I know that the viewers and the listeners are going to really dive into this segment, because I'm sure that there are many people who have to really think about caregiving for their loved ones. And so I want to address all of those of you who have been listening and viewing this episode here. Thank you so much for tuning in to this amazing episode. This is Dr. Paulette Harper. And until I see you again, God bless you.
Thank you.